Tor House, Part 1, A Cottage by the Sea. Welcome to Tor House, the one-time home of one of America's premier poets. Robinson Jeffers lived here from the completion of the Cottage in 1919 until his death in 1962. Jeffers is often reckoned the poet of environmentalism, though he was no activist, and his poetry is so much more than topical. It is powerful, controversial, passionate, dangerous, beautiful, and sometimes unabashedly direct. Jeffers is known for his exhilarating depictions of the central coast of California. He is also known for his emphasis on the inhuman world, what we lazily call nature. But in Jeffers' poetry, we humans are part of nature, and it should be noted, not a very important part of it. Jeffers denies any centrality to man. With a touch of contrarian irony, Jeffers bent the term humanism to name his philosophy inhumanism. One certainly doesn't have to be an environmentalist to admire Jeffers. Charles Bukowski, perhaps the most prominent grunge poet ever, once declared, "Jeffers is my God," perhaps because of Jeffers' fearlessness as a writer. One of the earliest admirers of Jeffers' poetry was the poet, socialist, and activist James Rorty. Once asked how he, a socialist, could think so much of the poetry of an enigmatic recluse such as Jeffers, Rorty replied, "I don't share his philosophy. What of it? He writes with greater poetic intensity than any other living poet I have read." Tor House is much more than a celebrity house or a mere historical curiosity. Edward Abbey, the radical environmentalist author of Desert Solitaire and the Monkey Wrench Gang, declared Jeffers to be a prophet, and a visit to Tor House to be a literary pilgrimage. Tor House is a work of literature, of poetry in stone. No doubt it was the poet's first masterpiece, and likewise his muse, for it was in the granite of Carmel Point, California, that the poet found his voice. John Robinson Jeffers was born near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in January 1887. Called Robin by family and friends, the boy's childhood was privileged but severe. His father, a scholar of biblical history and ancient languages, among other honors, was an exacting taskmaster who demanded nothing but the best for and from his son, and so sent the boy off to Europe with his mother to attend school at age 4. It may have been lucky for Robin that he attended school in Europe for much of his childhood. When he was home, his father had a heavy hand, in the boy's education. When Robin turned 9, his father began to beat Latin into him. The boy's rigorous education gave him headaches and doubtless had a permanent impact on his personality. Dr. Jeffers kept his son isolated and transient. At their home near Pittsburgh, Dr. Jeffers first planted a hedge for privacy, but when that failed to keep Robin's friends away, Dr. Jeffers moved his family out of town. By age 12, Robin was fluent in French and German, and he could also read Latin and ancient Greek, though perhaps not well enough for his father. It is recounted that once upon visiting Robin in Europe, Dr. Jeffers had the boy recite some of the Greek he had learned in school there. The boy responded well to the challenge, but Dr. Jeffers was deeply disappointed to hear his son recite Greek in a modern dialect. But there was more to Dr. Jeffers. As harsh as he was not narrow-minded. When Robin was 14, his father gave him a book of poems by the poet and painter Dante Gabriel Rossetti, a medieval revivalist known for his strikingly erotic verse. The boy lapped it up, and a transformation ensued. Later in life, Robinson Jeffers recounted the unequaled influence this experience had on him. Like a good dog, Robin obeyed his master. There is little doubt that he loved his father. He grew up to be an excellent student and scholar, but he may have grown up with emotional deficiencies and an inability to discipline himself once he got out in the world. This is where Una comes in, and she was just what Robin needed, a father figure. The two first met in a class on advanced German literature at the University of Southern California. Robin was 19 and Una was 22. She was a modern woman, on her way to a master's degree in philosophy. She was a pianist, a golfer, and an auto racer, married to a prominent and talented LA attorney. But Una fell in love with Robin, and after a 7-year affair, her husband finally found a new love and granted Una a divorce. Robin and Una married the day after her divorce was finalized. They dreamed of a cottage by the sea on the coast of Dorset, England, not far from the granite tors of Dartmoor. Unfortunately, the First World War frustrated that dream, and the two opted to give the town of Carmel a try. Carmel is a beautiful place with its pine forest, white beaches, emerald coves, and oriental cypress groves. But its most striking feature in the eyes of Robin and Una was an outcrop of granite that reminded them of the tors of Dartmoor. This, their tor, was their favorite picnic spot for a time. The tor had served as the 10th and final tee of Carmel's golf course, but when war came, the course's designer and manager, a native Scotsman, returned to the old country to serve as a Red Cross volunteer, and so abandoned the golf course. A world-class course was under development at Pebble Beach, so the orphaned 10-hole golf course was sold off and subdivided. Robin and Una Jeffers bought 16 lots and hired Mike Murphy, a prolific local builder, to build them a house out of the granite from the surf below. For the stonework, Murphy hired on Robert Pearson, a semi-retired stonemason with an impressive portfolio. At the time, Robin was in something of a creative rut. He'd published one book of poems, but he wasn't terribly proud of it. He castigated his verse as mimicry. As intelligent as he was, he could not escape the conventions and patterns that had been ingrained into him. Yet he did not aspire to modernistic novelty. He'd set himself an oppressively high bar. Now he was 32. He had no career or calling other than poetry. Time for him moved slowly, and it seemed to Jeffers that his house was not being built quickly enough. So he signed himself on as an apprentice to Mike Murphy's stonemason. This decision would change his life. Next up, the cottage within. Schedule a tour of Tor House at torhouse.org. This independent presentation was produced in support of the Robinson Jeffers Tor House Foundation. The views expressed herein are not necessarily those of the Foundation. Your support for Tor House is appreciated.